Thank you. Thank you, John. Sorry to give you a slight heart attack. We were coming in by the side. Welcome, everyone. Very pleased to be here. As John said, my name's Fiona Mulliner. I'm from London & Partners, which is the Mayor of London's official promotional agency. And I'm here to talk about the future traveller with my esteemed guests. So I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves with a few words about who they are, what they do. So over to my right, Tom.
Hi there, my name's Tom Valentine. I'm one of the founders of a company called Secret Escapes. We're an online marketplace that drives incremental purchase by connecting consumers who aren't quite sure exactly where and when they want to travel with supply, be it hotels or tour operators who are looking to drive incremental trade.
Hi, morning. My name is Julia Bue-Said. I'm the CEO of the Advantage Travel Partnership. We're a membership organisation delivering consultancy services on behalf of our travel companies, both leisure and business travel. We transact around $4.5 billion a year, so Travel Agent is alive and kicking. It's not going anywhere. And we're all about supporting them in this, whether it's through digital activity, commercial and marketing support.
Great. Julie and Tom, great to see you. My name is Nair. I lead the Expedia Group Media Solutions business. Expedia, we look ourselves as the world's travel platform. We have lots and lots of people globally who come and transact and interact and engage with us. And at Media Solutions, we look at ourselves as a matchmaker. On one side, you have 145 million people who come to us on a monthly basis. We have our travel partners and our advertisers who want to be discovered by these travelers, and we are the ones that make it happen. I'm based in Dallas, Texas, and I've been with Expedia for just over 16 years.
Excellent. Well, we're here to talk about tomorrow's travellers. So what I wanted to do, first of all, was to ask the panel to give us their thoughts on who exactly they're talking to and what was the market gap or the market's demand that they identified that's helped them develop or create their business. Now, obviously, we've got a big beast on the right-hand side here of Expedia.
A beast? Is that what you call us?
Beast.
All right.
One of the largest booking platforms in the world, I think I'm right in saying. So that's less about how that was first started, but more about how it's developing now. Julia's got the travel agency model, and then over here Tom's got the interesting on the fringes model, if I can say that. So it'd be very interesting for me to understand from the three of you about what's actually driven the development of your companies and what customer demand has made you do what you do. Julia, do you want to start?
I think it's really interesting, and obviously listening to Mike, I think when we think about travel agents, I think there is this visual that we all have around old-fashioned bricks and mortar. But our organisation's growing, our membership is growing, and joking aside, I said travel agents are alive and kicking. They really are. We have to change. Agents, whether leisure or business travel, need to demonstrate value, need to invest in their tools and their communication channels to their consumer. Absolutely, and that goes without saying. But it's a really interesting market, and I think one of the things that we don't often think about, and I was interested in Mike's timeline that travel agents weren't there as a source of distribution. It's phenomenal, and I think you've got an age of security. You've got an age where as travellers, it is information overload. If you are outside of one of the platforms like yourselves, it is very. I mean, I'm a consumer. I buy online, but it can be very confusing. So, our role and our members' role is to simplify that. But we always start with customer. We don't pre-package something and then sell it on. We are about delivering the experience, and we have to deliver it in a way that the consumer expects nowadays. And that's all. And we've developed, so maybe we could talk about it later, developed some technology products which allow our members to be able to do that and talk to consumers how they want to be spoken to.
Lovely, thank you. Harry, would you like to go next?
Sure. We get access to and we get visibility into millions of data points on a daily basis in terms of how the customers are engaging with us. But what we also do is we embark upon research studies that really augments what we already know. And what you're really seeing into the future is there's this cohort of individuals that are coming into the work stream, and that are the millennials and the Gen Zs. And the way they operate is very different from the way we, at least I consider myself as a baby boomer, we operated. They are all about travel. They travel often. They travel very, very frequently, and they're willing to travel long distances. At least from my generation, we used to think about saving money. Here, they are about wanting to live in the moment, which is very big for them. So I think there are three main pieces that we carve out. One is the fact that They are all about experiences, but about making local connections. They want to experience in the moment what is unique, what is differentiated, and they want to experience things that are off the beaten path. Second is they are digital nomads. This concept about I have to go to a work location and work every single day is kind of that myth is being demystified. They are all about working remotely. And what that means is having workspaces that can have communities actually work together. So whether it is public libraries, whether it is coffee shops, and so on, those are the areas in which these guys work. And finally, is the traveler of the tomorrow is very impatient. And what I mean by that is the average patience for a customer on our site when they come, for a site to upload is 2 seconds. And any time when the page load takes more than 2 seconds, you see a 50% drop in conversion. So they're super, super impatient in terms of the frictionless travel and the ability to personalize travel. That's what they look at. So these are some really interesting trends, and we as a company and our platform are pivoting kind of towards that infrastructure, and there's a lot of work that we need to do on our platforms to make that happen.
So, Tom, does that chime with your experience when you started up Secret Escapes? Was that about providing more choice? Was it about making the impatient possible?
Yeah, so when we started Secret Escapes 8 years ago, even then, the big, generally friendly beasts existed, and felt like they were really well serving what we refer to as retail travel. And that's when a customer knows exactly where and when they want to go. And our view was that there were a bunch of things going on in the market. This was back when Groupon was a big, big success. There was Voyage Privé in France that gave us a strong indication that retail travel wasn't the only way to buy and sell travel. And it didn't appear that there was a big beast that had won that. And our sense is there still isn't, although kind of we have ambitions for beastdom eventually, I guess. And so we look across at an Expedia or a Booking.com, and we see two things. We see still probably the kind of baseline about how people buy and sell travel online. So service standards are imported from the big OTAs, and you have to meet that because it's unrealistic to assume that your customers don't have 20 tabs open. But at the same time, we see very, very clear brands that we can differentiate from. And the fringes of online travel are still billion-dollar markets. Yeah. So there's plenty to be done there.
Yeah. Interesting. And do you think, Julia, that from the travel agent perspective, do you see more people moving off onto the sort of Secret Escapes, sort of the slightly fringy model? Or do you think that actually there's still plenty of demand for that, for your services in the middle there?
I think there's consumers aren't loyal to one particular brand. They're not loyal to travel agents or any platforms here on stage. I think so actually we have to be relevant and meet their expectations and needs depending on what they're looking to buy. So if they are looking for point to point, if they're looking for a spontaneous break, then it might be Secret Escapes. And for us it could be that when they're looking for that special break or their business travel needs, they'll come to travel agents. So I think there is ample business, and it's really about trying to find our part to play in that whole distribution chain.
Mm. And you talked about technology before, and I'm interested in, is technology driving demand, or is demand driving technology? We heard lots of interesting things from Mike, but I'm still wondering about the whole customer experience piece. If I want to go on holiday, I want to go on holiday. I don't know whether I'm driven by the technology that lets me go there. That's just my need to go away for a break. I mean, are there customer insights that any of you have seen that have driven, the next developmental curve in your business?
I'm happy to take a stab at that, but I think I completely concur here with Tom and Julia. Travel is a $1.6 trillion marketplace. There is plenty of room for a lot of people, not just to survive, but to thrive, so beasts or otherwise. I think in terms of, the way we look at it is there's a natural convergence that is happening in the space of technology and innovation and engagement, to your point, and creating those experiences. And we I'll give you some specific examples, but within the Expedia group, we work with a lot of destinations because of the amount of travel intent consumers that we have on our site. You have a lot of destinations want to work with us, but how do you create those unique experiences without being a nuisance? So an example that I can provide is about 2 years ago, we created an experience with the Hawaiian Tourism Board, and it was a campaign that was called Discover Your Aloha. Now, Hawaii, for those of you who know, is far-flung. You spend a lot of dollars to go there. There is so much to do. And what we did was we implemented what was called the facial recognition technology for the first time. So imagine this. You are sitting in front of your computer. You're thinking about going to Hawaii. You're watching a video, an amazing video that was created for about 3 minutes. You have to enable your camera. And as you're watching this video, your facial expressions are captured by the software. And at the end of the 3 minutes, we show a trip that is right for you, which may be very different than for your partner or your spouse or your friend, and you're able to tailor this to a person's needs. So that is a really good example, I would think, about creating an experience, giving this amazing opportunities about what your trip in Hawaii could look like, and really immersing you in it. And just about 6 months ago, we created a very similar campaign for Palace Resorts, and this was not about facial recognition, but it was more about eye tracking. And it was Palace Resorts, where they have beautiful properties all over the world, particularly in the Caribbean and Mexico. And here it was about, they were showing you all kinds of activities you could do, and you could just track your eyes, and on the basis of that, we recommended which is the right Palace hotel for you. So there are great ways to do this, and I think we are just at the start of something very, very special. But to answer your question, Julia, that's the way we, Fiona, that's the way we look at it. It's a natural convergence. I don't think technology would power travel or vice versa. I don't think one can be without the other.
And what results did you get from your facial recognition?
Tremendous. I think from the facial recognition, I think conversion was up almost like 145 or 150%. Hawaii was, I wouldn't say all of Hawaii was flooded with Expedia customers, but I would imagine that we actually did play a part.
But that's around personalization, and so you can argue you don't need technology for, you don't need that type of technology for that, because Secret Escapes is it feels a very personal experience.
Yeah, and more widely in answer to the question, we think sitting in travel and online travel, we're sat on the right side of some macro trends. Like, people are spending a greater proportion of their disposable income on experiences, and travel is an incredible way to buy an experience. And separately, if you want to sell travel online, probably you want to be near the top of some list or other as the consumer is searching. And if you looked back 10 years, probably the one list that mattered was, well, maybe there's two, there was Google and the OTAs.
Yeah.
The thing that's super exciting now and makes searching for online travel more exciting for the consumer and makes online travel more of a scalable, useful channel for more hotels is there's hundreds of different lists. So the perfect hotel for Secret Escapes in a destination might well be a different hotel for a call center, travel agent, or Expedia. And then an entirely different hotel might trend better on Instagram. So again, there's an awful lot of these different markets. We support hotels in winning in one of them. But there are many, many more places where a hotel can become famous and get to the point at which a marketing channel is really working for them.
Mm. Well, that's interesting, because there is some discussion, there's always discussion these days, I think, around choice and the abundance of choice. And is there too much choice? And how can, for example, travel agents help people make sense of all of that? In your experience, Julie, is there anything like too much choice? Are people really that confused by what's on offer?
Oh, definitely. I think that for all of us, I said back to the point, we are all consumers, and actually when we're online and we're trying to make decisions, there is so much to think about. Does Groupon offer me a discount? What's the safety record? What's the reviews? What's the health and safety? So there are so many different decisions that we need to make, and actually what our members do and what we try to do through our agents are online as well. So back to that visualising, it's not just bricks and mortars. How do we make that experience a smoother experience? How do we make sure that it's about the customer and what they want? Technology is huge, and technology enables us all, and that it powers our decision making and it powers our businesses. but we need to be clear on what it is that the consumer wants and how do we drive that. So customer comes first, what are they looking for, what experience are they looking for, what hotels are they looking for, and then how do we help them decide, work through all those different choices. That's what, our life is about, making consumer choice easy, and making, business travel safe and secure. That's what it's about. But I think as customers, we have so much choice amongst a confusion. So we talk about fake news, we talk about, there's a lot of information out there which we're having to digest and process.
And if we look forward just slightly, let's say 2, 3, 4, 5 years, I won't go further than that because that's out on the margins. Where do any of you see, customer trends, needs, demands changing over time, and how will that also change what you're doing? Who wants to start with that? Tom?
So the trend we observe from a kind of upper mass market customer base is certainly away from old favorites and known brand hotels. There's still a lot there, but if you think about travel as a reflection of experiential travel, it's important to sell somebody a great vacation and great components, but fundamentally what you're selling is the story during the trip and when people come back, and novelty is the easiest way to sell a story, right? So nobody seriously thinks that you are the first person to have visited Iceland. That seems unlikely. However, you might well be the first person to have visited Iceland in the last couple of years in your social group, and that amounts to fundamentally the same thing. But then the next person in the social group is going to need to find another interesting story. And so kind of novelty, especially for a business like Secret Escapes, where one of the promises we're making to the consumer is in situations where you're not ready to dive right in and look at the hundreds of thousands of alternatives, and you want somebody to help you curate, and you're trusting them to help you save time, you need to grow your brand, ideally through people traveling with you and enjoying, and so trusting you the next time. And that becomes more and more challenging as you need to discover for your customers new destinations. And so when we look at the technological future, the thing we're most excited about in the next 4 or 5 years is when the kind of buzzwords incoming, but the kind of big data and the AI piece starts to get better than a human at looking at a relatively small customer segment and saying, you know what, they loved their trip to Iceland. Did they love it because of the geography? Did they love it because of the flight pricing? Did they love it because of the experiences they had while they were there? And then working out what the next thing is.
Right, so leading them on from
Yeah.
taking that data, understanding it, and then...
Because at the moment, we do our best, but the kind of deep tech around recommendations isn't quite there yet. And we're looking forward to it becoming there.
Okay. Julia, what do you think is going to be driving change?
I think I agree with what Tom said. I think there's a lot of change there that I wouldn't disagree with. I think also, so from my kind of, from my members' point of view, from the travel agent point of view, change will be their need to invest in technology. So as an example, we've invested in a collaborative tool. It's a social media tool that allows agents to, share quotes, share reviews, share experiences with their customers, and share that with their friends. So that's something that our agents are investing in. So the future for us is to be cognizant of what's happening around us, understand the customer, and it's quite complicated because it's very geographical. There's very different demographics. You're dealing from the Gen Zs to the kind of silver travellers, and it's a whole plethora of different information, resource, skill, technology that you need to attract the different marketplaces. But be aware of what the consumer needs are, because I think it's very easy to forget what the consumer behaviour is that's happening around us.
Okay. Harry?
I think there are far too many trends to speak about, but I'll pick on one because I think in a world of travel and technology and marketing, there are so many things. You can spend days talking about it, but I think one of the elements that we see is around bleisure travel, or bleisure as some might call it, but I'm going to stick to my Indianness and call it bleisure. So at the Media Solutions Group, we very recently, we ran a study. So we did a study in 2016, but it really comprised of a very small cohort of just US consumers, and we expanded this time. And the data that has come out of that is kind of fascinating. So on the bleisure side, 60% of business trips today is extended into a leisure stay as well, which is almost up 40% over a 2-year span. Which is pretty remarkable, which is a lot of good news out here for destinations, or for travel providers, airlines, hotels, all alike, which is a great, I would say, a trend to see. And we actually see this continue. It really gets more interesting even after this. An average business trip globally is for about 3.9 days. And when you add the leisure component to it, either before or after, it's 2.9 days. So you've almost extended your stay by 75% by adding a leisure component, which is much more than I would have ever thought. And if you take a look at the frequency of trips that one does on a yearly basis, that's about 6.5 business trips is what on an average an individual does. So if you do the math, your business trips itself is about 25 days in a year, and 18 days extra would be on the leisure side, which is lots and lots of money to make for lots of people in this room and even otherwise. Now, if you take a look at the split of the trips, domestic versus international, globally the split is 70% of the business trips that happens is domestic and 30% is international. But not all trips are actually made equal. If you start taking a look at it at the country level, United States and China, the split of domestic versus international is almost 90-10. Now, China, it's almost like 75-25, but you can see that these are very large countries from a landmass standpoint, and therefore people actually tend to travel domestically. If you take a look at the UK, and if you take a look at Germany, that split is 65-35, domestic versus international. And then, of course, you have India, which is like 60-40, lots of people traveling internationally because of the foreign investment that is coming in, so which is making people go out. But here is the big aha for me. You would usually think that an international trip, if you're traveling internationally, is when you're going to join the leisure component. Not true. 50% probability that either your domestic or your international trip will have a leisure component to it. That was a big aha. So therefore, if you have domestic destinations that does not have a whole lot of international travelers coming in, you're just as probable for somebody to extend it into a leisure as opposed to an international trip, which is really good news. And the second big aha is lots and dollars are going towards dining experiences and food. A big chunk of your wallet, almost 18 to 20% of dollars are actually being set aside, no longer for just hotel and air, it's for food experiences, which pretty much matches a lot of the reviews that we have seen out there. So some really fascinating stuff. And I think one of the areas where I think our industry needs to get better at, we are really good at the pre-trip experience, allowing you to book your perfect hotel on Secret Escapes or Expedia or wherever, and at the air. But in-trip, I think as an industry, we have a lot of work to do in order to engage and connect with customers when they are in the moment, in the trip. We are not as good as we should be. So I think there's a lot of opportunity out there for the industry overall.
Interesting. And what about the likes of virtual reality? You know, these days we can all put on our headsets, we can travel anywhere. Just the other day I was talking to Barack Obama in the White House. That was fascinating. That's as close as I will ever get to the White House, but it was fascinating. Do you think that virtual reality, augmented reality has got the opportunity, is this an opportunity to show off destinations, to show people their perfect experience, or is it actually a challenge? Might people just watch it in their heads and think, well, I've been there now, I've got no need to go? What do you think?
I think it all helps with the selling process. I don't think it takes away. I don't think it would put you off going to wanting to go to Washington because you've spoken to Barack Obama, through virtual reality. So I think it all aids that process. Personally, I think it's an extra enticement into why you'd want to travel to that destination. Travel is not one-dimensional. So actually, it's about immersing yourself in that experience, and just by putting the headsets on, it's not quite ticking all the boxes.
What do you think, Tom?
So,
are you a fan?
So I'm a fan, although, if you've got a virtual reality headset, what you're doing, not shooting robots, I don't understand. And it does raise the question of competition outside of travel.
Yeah.
That said, I think in the attempt to build a theme, it's just another area to differentiate. So we did something very, very cool with Google Cardboard and Machu Picchu. And that made a ton of sense, because I tend to be somewhat cynical about these things. But actually, you put it on, and I felt you understood better why you would book that trip. Right? Okay. I'm not sure that's 100% true for every single destination. Yeah. But for one destination, it might be VR, another might be a really impressive audio guide using the GPS. Like, who knows? Sure. But as ways to get your destination to the top of a list of millions of travelers that doesn't involve having to win on a big beast, I think it's a very credible alternative.
Okay. Harry, what do you think?
We take a look at this as a massive enabler for travel, because I agree. You cannot substitute travel to something that you watch, just by putting equipment on. I think it should be an enabler. But I think we are partnering with a lot of supply vendors out there and actually creating personal, unique experiences to pick the right seat on the airplane, to pick the right room for you in a hotel, where you can actually, on a site, and now it's still in a test mode, but you can actually walk into a hotel room and you can take a look at the room. Do you like it? You can open the mini bar. You can see what the amenities are. But here is, again, an opportunity to really personalize. You open the minibar and you're a big fan of vodka, and you find that it's absolute vodka, but that's not what you drink. You drink something else. And you can actually make a request so that when you come into the room and you check in, you'll have your favorite vodka brand out there. So it's a massive enabler. I think it's a route to personalization as well. But I think we are, again, at the beginning of something special. And that's the way we look at it.
Okay. And in terms of who do you think's doing really great work out there? Out of all the companies, if you were starting again, you weren't starting Secret Escapes, you weren't working with, if you weren't at the big beast, who would you be emulating? Who would you think, well, they've got something there? Who do you really admire out in the travel space? Julia, what do you think?
I think I don't particularly have one in travel. I think there's a lot that do travel. All the brands here do travel really well. I think no one's quite perfected it, but everyone's on that journey, and it sounds like you're on that journey in your own model. I think somebody that if I look at Amazon, Amazon is providing that and has always provided that personality, that personal touch. I go on and it knows what products I'm looking for. It's a very for me as a customer, it's a very cost-effective method to consume. So it's easy for me. And I think a travel business that, whether it's retail or online, offline, that can work to personalising their service, personalising their product offering, understanding what their customer wants, inspire them, because we forget, when you take business travel out of it, we are here to inspire. We're selling dreams and holidays, and we talk about it very matter of fact, but for a lot of consumers, it's still about selling that dream. So how do we do it, and how do we do that really well, and handhold that customer through the journey, whether that's face-to-face, online, or on the phone. No matter what I want as a customer, I want to be serviced that way. I'm not sure anyone's doing it completely right now, or has it perfected, but I think there are a lot of companies that are on that journey, and I don't think we'll ever quite get there, which is the right thing, but we can all kind of have a lot of fun trying.
Okay, Tom, if it wasn't Secret Escapes, what would you be doing?
Napping generally, but I think a mistake a lot of the futurologists have made over and over again is assuming that platforms which cover thousands of verticals are going to remain dominant in all of those verticals. Right. And so I look at Instagram, and it was mentioned in the earlier keynote, and how pivotal that is in travel. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if somebody smarter than me is going to work out how to make a travel-focused business that takes the best bits of Instagram but removes the boasting risk. So I think something there about visual social media in travel. I don't think it's finished yet as regards the innovation.
Okay. And Harry?
So I'll answer the question in two ways. Okay. One is, I think if we were to emulate someone else, I think the closest we would get to is Amazon. I think they are purely because of their customer centricity, and they're obsessed by it. If you think about platform and services, there are lots of names that needs to be taken out there. There's an incredible work going on, like you said. But I think the one that stands out in my mind is Alibaba. I think what they have done with 550 unique users monthly in their walled garden. So that garden is very, very large. And what they've done with their businesses and the network effects they're trying to establish between all of the businesses so that when what you shop, what you eat, when you sleep, what you play with, they have it all. And I think they're able to create this amazing, and they're maniacal about artificial intelligence and data mining. They're really, really good and solid at it. And if you take a look at what used to be Taobao Travel, which became Ali Trip, and now it's called Fliggy, I think it is one of the OTAs to look out for because they're doing some really good work. Specifically, they've chosen two vectors. One is the airline industry, and they've chosen millennials as their customer segment. And it's going to be Fliggy is an OTA to keep an eye out on. And it's within the Alibaba ecosystem. Really, really good.
Oh, interesting. And Julie, you said you didn't think that anyone was doing it perfectly yet. Can you think of anything that we could fix right now, that we could be working on right now to make experiences for customers better, that would really make a difference to most people?
Yeah, I guess it's how as an industry, how do we get to know the customer? So of course, data, AI, that's all helping us. So how do we make sure that we have the tools around us that can properly understand? But how do you understand a customer? Because again, we talk about these things, they're one-dimensional. We shop and buy everywhere. So how do I truly understand? So you may pigeonhole me as a I don't know, a little customer, but you don't know where else I'm shopping, you don't know where else I'm buying. So actually, how do we perfect that? How do we truly ensure that we can provide relevant content? So one of the quick examples that we do as a business, so we obviously do digital services. We mail our customers. We have direct mail activity before their trip, after their trip, and obviously at that point you get very high conversions when you're selling on products. But how do we replicate that elsewhere? So how do we truly understand what the customer is buying, the type of customer they are, because we're a customer of everything. And that's what I mean. But I don't know, right now, how do we make sure that we can perfect the products that we're selling to the customer, whether it's spontaneously, whether it's for long term, whether it's for my shop window. I'm not going to sell a £30,000 Mauritius holiday if I've got that in my shop window. I might sell a city break. I might sell a break in the UK. So how do we know what customer we're targeting? I just think it's pretty complex, pretty broad, but always starts with actually, who is my customer? How am I best targeting them? Whether that's through data I've got, but also data I don't know. How do I get hold of that? How do I get to
what you don't
them?
know? Yes.
Yeah.
And Tom, what have you found out about your customers, your Secret Escape members, your fans, and what do you do with that information?
Well, the one thing that we've found out this year, which I guess most businesses in the room, at least ones that trade in Europe, have, is that they're super, super concerned about the safety of their data, right? And one thing that I note as we kind of stand here is we talk about how travel and personalization can get much, much better once all the data is present. But it feels like we're kind of sat on a bit of a watershed as regards whether consumers are willing to trade kind of access for noble purpose to their data for an improved customer experience.
Right.
Or actually, in 5 years' time, we might look back at some of the stuff we're doing right now and realize it's no longer possible to do it, and consumers no longer accept it being done.
Right.
So, we go to great extents to kind of, as every other business is doing, but explain why we have the data, why it's important, and kind of, why we're handling it safely. The other side of it is our customers tell us again and again that what they want is to be profoundly surprised by what's in the email, right? So, we all have the story about I booked a trip to New York and you kept sending me New York, and you can see how that gets optimized. But what we're trying to do is see that you bought New York and not just send you Boston because it's a big city nearby in America, but try and take our best guess at why you bought that trip and then surprise you with something relevant. So that's the tension we exist under.
Right.
And some of the tests we're doing at the moment is trying to work out whether explaining a little bit about why we've made the recommendations helps or hinders in kind of creating that magic of, I wasn't planning this trip, but I'm going to take it tomorrow.
Okay. And with Expedia, you obviously have a lot of, tools in your arsenal. Where do you see that going? So there's eye tracking, there's the facial recognition. What else?
There's a lot, but I think where we are focusing at this point of time, Fiona, is really what our customers expect of us and we of ourselves is fix the damn basics. And for us, we are having a lot of focus at this point of time on just site speed. We just want to get it below the 2-second threshold, and it's hard work, particularly when you're looking at hotels and airlines and cars and cruises, and you have to ship this whole thing into a new format and this new ecosystem. 2 seconds or less, that's where we are focused on, because it massively improves conversion. But the way to get there, and there are lots of ways in which we can get there. I think on app we are there. Where it's really hard is on desktop and on MWeb, where you can use it through progressive web apps and so on and so forth. But that's our primary focus. And I think as just general guidance to the folks in this audience is, our philosophy has been test and learn. Don't be afraid to fail. 80% of the tests that we do on a yearly basis actually fail. We do about 2,000 tests or more on an annual basis. With 80% of them failing, you're only successful 400 times in a year. But what that tells us, though, is your website, in that case, is getting better every day.
Yeah.
So that's a real focus.
Yeah. And in terms of, I know none of us can look into the crystal ball. We don't know what's coming other than more stuff, more data, more tech. How do you think those of us in the travel business can best future-proof ourselves? I mean, is there a way of future-proofing? Do we just need to accept that actually change is constant and we need to be ready for that? How can people out there future-proof their business and make it the best they can? What do you think, Tom?
So I think the one thing that's not going to change is, at least in the next 5 to 10 years, it's going to be humans making the decisions. So your human relationship with your customers, which to us translates into customer satisfaction and NPS, are the metrics that seem very hard for technology to destroy the relevance of, or regulators to remove the commercial value from. Right? So the number we look at most aggressively every quarter is that NPS score that comes back, because this is all very complicated, and you can be reasonably confident that if that number is heading up, you're doing broadly the right thing for both your customers and your business.
Yeah. Okay. Julia.
I think I suppose the audience here, I would say, don't forget that there is a world outside the big beasts. There is a really financially rewarding opportunity to bring some new products and new technology software to business travel and leisure retail agents. And a lot of things that we talked about today was actually how does technology enable the agency community to deliver experiences and relevant products and services to a customer base they know intimately. So if there is technology out there that can help the agency community deliver better products and services, that's something that we're always looking to invest in.
Harry?
Yeah, I think from our standpoint, I think really, 3 talking points, if you will. One is, to your point, embrace change. The fact that travel forward is a new component in WTM itself has changed this year than WTM has seen. So I would say embrace change. I talked about test and learn. Don't be afraid to fail at all, because I think it is a recipe for success. And I think finally is really know who you're chasing, right? I think we at Expedia, we lost our way a couple of years ago because we were trying to be all things to everybody, and that what really does is it puts a tremendous amount of strain on your resources, on your tech platforms, and so on. So if you know who you're chasing, then it makes life a lot more simpler, and therefore that would be something that you can do to future-proof your world.
Good, excellent. Well, very interesting. I think it's all about the customer. We all know that in our gut, but it's how do you actually translate that every single day in your business. Will you join me in thanking Harry, Julia, and Tom for a very interesting discussion?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, fantastic. We do have a moment for any, are there any questions out there? We've got just a few minutes. Can't see any hand going up. Yes, we have a hand. Okay, well, can we have a roving microphone to the question, please?
Hi. Question to all the panel guests is, how do you feel about the impact that voice recognition systems such as Siri, Alexa, Googles of this world are going to play as gatekeepers in the future in terms of planning, holidays, trips, in fact, anything we do?
I'm happy to take that as a stab. So we are watching this space very closely, and I can tell you from an Expedia standpoint, we are already embedded in Alexa as the kind of the travel recommender. So it is a space we are very excited about. I think it changes things in the way you shop and book as compared to if you look at it versus a desktop or a mobile experience, where if you're looking for hotels in London on a desktop, you will actually go through maybe the 200 listings out there, or you would have made up your mind in your first 20 listings. It's almost like a buffet that is laid out to you, and you can walk around and you take a look. On voice, as you're in your kitchen, you're cutting your onions, you're not going to listen to 200 recommendations out there. So the way you're going to consume content and the way the importance of, I would say, customer reviews, service level at a property that is going to recommend you right to the top at the voice results, search results page, that is going to play a super key role. So the way we search and book is going to be very different on the voice device as opposed to the traditional ways that we've been used to for many, many years. That's how we see it.
Julia, Tom, anything to add?
I think it's another complication, but actually I hadn't thought about it the way Harry said it there. That it's when you speak to a voice recognition device such as Alexa, you're expecting a result. If you're asking for a particular hotel in a particular destination, how does it even kind of fathom through what that top result needs to be? You don't want to be sitting there, as you say, listening to. So no, I think that's quite an interesting evolution, I guess.
Tom, what do you think?
So I think on this one, we're content to be a fast follower. And I think there's so much going on, you have to be open to doing that within your business. But it seems most directly applicable to retail.
Yeah.
And so, we'll see what the Expedias of the world do. Does it become a norm? And then work out the Secret Escapes version of it.
Exactly. Follow the leader. Yes. Any more?
Time for one more, maybe? Okay. Speak now, forever hold your peace. Okay, well, thank you very much. Let's
thank you again.
Round of applause to Fiona and the team.
Great to be here.
Guys.
Thank you. What a delight.